a hillside near Bethlehem in the Holy Land. Vineyards are buried beneath the rubble of a building site. This land has been chosen for a new Jewish settlement on the Israeli-occupied west bank of the River Jordan. To the families moving in, this is Israel. To the Arabs who farmed here for centuries, it's Palestine, and their vines and their land are being stolen.
This is my land, and they destroyed this one, and they destroyed this trees of vines. This is my land. Israel forces took the land to build for the nation of Israel. You see, this house is building on our lands. This is our land.
The ultimate objective is to drive all Palestinians from their land. It's to create an exclusive Jewish state on the West Bank, drive the Palestinians off their homes, and turn the Palestinians into a people without a land.
In recent months, Israel has dramatically accelerated the building of fortress suburbs on the Palestinian hills of the west bank of the River Jordan. It's the silent counterpart to the recent war in Lebanon. Some members of Mr. Begin's government call it the second part of the same war. Part one of Israel's plan was to crush the PLO military threat from Beirut. Part two, to end Palestinian hopes of a homeland in the West Bank by populating it and absorbing it into Israel. One man masterminded both stages, Defense Minister Ariel Sharon, forced to resign over the Beirut massacre. Yesterday, he was reinstated to 2 cabinet security committees. The West Bank is no part of Israel. Palestinian Arabs have lived and farmed there for centuries. But it's been occupied by the Israeli army since the Six-Day War of 1967. It was never formally annexed. Now the Begin government is mounting a civilian invasion designed to absorb the Palestinian territory into Israel for good. In the Arab towns of what was biblical Judea and Samaria, many fear that Israel's invasion of stone and concrete amounts to a backdoor annexation of the area they claim as the Palestinian homeland. Mayor of Bethlehem, Elias Frege.
They want to colonize the West Bank, to transform the West Bank into a Jewish West Bank, to encircle Arab towns and villages, transform them into small enclaves and ghettos, because they are doing their utmost, working day and night to build new settlements, enlarge existing settlements, encouraging their people to come and settle in the settlements, and to finish or complete the colonization of the West Bank.
Professor Yuval Neyman, a scientist who worked on Israel's atom bomb projects, is a minister in charge of the settlement policy hammered out by Ariel Sharon. He joined Mr. Begin's cabinet during the Lebanon War, urging an all-out offensive on Beirut. He took the post on condition that the settlement program on the West Bank was stepped up. Going further than government policy, he wants Israel's grip on the West Bank, which he calls Judea and Samaria, made official and final.
My party is a party that is for straightforward, immediate annexation of Judea and Samaria and Gaza. As such, we need 2 things for this to become fact. On the one hand, the legal side, simply establishing Israeli law everywhere. And the other thing is creating facts so that it can't be detached anymore by having a very sizable Jewish community there. I don't think that, that the situation will be stabilized before we have there perhaps 200,000 Jews living with these 700,000 Arabs, a sizable Jewish minority.
Within what sort of time?
Oh, I think that may take 5 years, 6 years. I would like already to have, let's say, about 100,000 Jewish inhabitants within 3 years.
More than 100 new settlements have been built in the Arab West Bank, mostly by Mr. Begin's government. 3 major mountain roads will soon be complete. Israel has commandeered 40% of the land in defiance of international law and despite the opposition of many of our allies, including the USA. At Efrat, one of the townships under construction, we spoke to Palestinian economist Ibrahim Matar.
Efrat is just a small example. They are building settlements all over the West Bank. And if the process goes on, Palestinians will end up in reservations and all the land will be in the hands of the Israelis.
The Israeli government seems determined to complete its colonization of the West Bank, but faces the fact that 1 million Palestinians live there. The government calls this the demographic problem. By this they mean that more than a third of an enlarged Israel would be Arab and hostile. Many Palestinians fear that Israel's answer to this dilemma is to drive them into exile. Even some Israeli politicians speak of this danger. Reserve Israeli Army General Matti Peled believes there are official plans for Arab deportations.
I think there are sufficient indications to show that the aim of the government is to, in fact, bring about an exodus of Palestinians at one point, because this is the most natural consequence of their policy to bring about annexation of the West Bank. Now, when they know that annexing the West Bank with over 1 million Palestinians would completely disrupt the demographical balance of Israel. So expelling the Palestinians is really an integral part of the plan to annex the West Bank.
The first indication that the Begin government was drawing up a secret plan to expel Palestinians came at a conference 2 years ago. General Aharon Yariv, former head of military intelligence, stated,
"There are ideas to use a war situation in order to deport 700,000 to 800,000 Arabs. These ideas are common, they're discussed, and the means are being prepared for them."
Ever since, Yariv has refused to discuss his statement.
Do you think General Yariv might have got it wrong?
Wrong? No, absolutely not. I mean, he's a very, very serious, a very responsible person, and he wouldn't make a statement like that without being absolutely sure that his information was reliable.
And we're talking about prepared, coherent contingency plans to evict people.
Well, I don't know if coherent, but anyhow, prepared contingency planning, so yes.
The belief that the Begin government wants to see a mass exodus of Palestinians is rooted in the violent birth of Israel. Matti Peled recalls the Deir Yassin massacre in 1948, an event similar to the slaughter at the Sabra and Shatila camps in Beirut last September. Present government leaders, including Menachem Begin, were involved then as militiamen.
The people who are leading the present government, the Prime Minister and some of his major assistants, are responsible for the massacre of Deir Yassin, which took place in 1948, right here near Jerusalem. This was a case in which military units under Begin's command attacked the village and massacred all its population, men, women, children, everybody. They felt very proud about it, and when criticized, they said that they in fact should be thanked, because after Deir Yassin, really the big exodus of Palestinians began from the areas controlled by the Jews, so to speak. Now, these people, I think, have the same mentality today and would probably think that the same methods would apply today.
Professor Neyman, the minister in charge of settlements, denies that expulsion plans exist. He offers Palestinians a choice.
Here there will be a minority in a Jewish country. Those who will accept that fact and identify with the state, they can swear allegiance to the flag and become Israeli citizen and vote to the Knesset and have all the rights and all the obligations.
And what if they don't want to do that?
Now, look, I can't say that if the Arabs decide that they have some good reason to go away, that will fight to keep them. I would say that if they feel that rather than living under a Jewish state, it does they feel so dishonored by being under a foreign rule that they don't want it, then it's their choice, and they would have to leave.
In private party meetings in Jerusalem last month, other senior government officials gave a different version of the policy. Agriculture Minister Michael Dekel.
There is a need to encourage Arab emigration from the West Bank, but this should not be the public policy of the government.
Matityahu Drobles, head of the Jewish agency which organizes all settlements, said,
"The world recognizes power. The world does not recognize morality. There is no such thing. I would recommend annexation and thus make our intentions clear to the people who live there today. It will help towards a massive Arab emigration."
building work for a new suburban settlement near Bethlehem. Efrat is being built on Palestinian vineyards for commuters who'll work in Jerusalem. Palestinian land economist Ibrahim Matar has kept a record of the Israeli land seizures.
The reason they use is security reasons. They just informed these farmers, get out of your land, this is not your land. They fenced it and they said for security reasons you're not allowed to enter the land.
Are the farmers compensated for the land that's taken?
Not at all. They don't even sometimes tell the farmers that their lands are being seized. The farmers only know when they see bulldozers working on the land.
Ismail Ali and Khalil Sbir own these vineyards. The settlement and its access roads cut a swathe across their land.
They seized my land from here way over there towards the desert. They destroyed the vines with the grapes still on them. They buried them all under the rubble. I lost at least 700 vines.
What did they do to your land?
My land's behind the hill over there. They surrounded it with barbed wire. I had 3 or 4 acres of grapevines and lost the best of my land. They've opened this road through it, and they want to build on that too.
If they took our lives, it would be easier to bear than their taking our land. Death would be better. They took our land illegally.
They took it to make settlements for the Jews, and they drove us out.
What do you feel about what they did?
Feel? It drives you insane. Is there anything worse than seeing everything you possess being buried? There's no one paying any attention to what is happening to us.
They never even gave us the opportunity to get the grapes harvested.
Muhammad Al-Ayun was another farmer who lost land at Efrat.
Israel's forces, they want to drive us out from Palestine and they bring nation from Israel to live in the place of us in Palestine. This vines it is for me. And they want to take all these vines trees, to build in it. We was work in our lands and live from it until this time. They put these rocks over the trees of the vines, grapes.
They lose their source of livelihood. They lose their only jobs, the only thing they know what to do as farmers. So they become unemployed and basically they've lost their source of livelihood.
Israeli occupation dominates the West Bank economy. The number of Palestinian farmers has dropped sharply. The number of unskilled laborers has doubled. Often they build the Israeli settlements. Arab employers have been reduced by half. 80,000 Arabs find temporary manual work with Israeli employers earning half the wages of Jewish workers. Many educated Palestinians can't find work and emigrate. A detailed study of the occupation's effects will soon be published. Its author is Israeli professor Meron Benvenisti.
There will be 2 ethnic groups living side by side with a relationship of a horse and a rider, with separate but unequal development, with one community enjoying all the liberties and all the affluence, and the other society is subjugated. And it's not a temporary situation like occupations are, it's a permanent fixture. And this is, I mean, to my mind, this is ominous. Other people find it very, very good, are very pleased with it.
The Begin government intends to quadruple the number of Israelis in the West Bank this year to more than 25,000. Settlements are built within easy reach of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, strategically placed just across the border in the occupied West Bank, where the government wants people to go and live. Newspaper advertising campaigns entice young couples to take advantage of cheap land, subsidized houses and generous loans. The settlement attracting most new residents is Ma'ale Adumim. Built on a barren hilltop 7 minutes' drive from Jerusalem, the new city with schools, leisure centers, an industrial estate and views to the Dead Sea has been built in less than 2 years. The first family moved in the same week that Israeli tanks advanced towards Beirut. Thousands of young couples who can't afford to buy property in Israel's major cities flock to look over the heavily subsidized flats every weekend. Many of them will buy. Matti and Tali Rota moved into their 3-bedroom flat last month. It cost them a third of what they would have paid in Jerusalem.
In the city we couldn't buy anything, almost, just maybe a room or 2. It's more room than 2. So here we could afford 4 rooms. The prices was, let's say, 20 or 30% less than in the center of town. Yeah, I think most of the people are coming here because it's very cheap, and not only cheap, the view, like I said, and a city that are being built from the beginning, everything together, and many young people, and it's very attractive to young couples.
Are you worried about the claims that many Arabs have who say this is their land and this is where their home should be, not yours?
I'm not thinking about it just now because, as we said, we just didn't have any other place that we wanted to live, and many Israelis are coming here. So we are a few of many. And like Mati said, I hope that someday we'll reach peace. And it will be that just fine.
If you want to get married, there are no housing, no jobs, no security, no future. No future. And that's why I've been insisting that time is running against our interests.
Last week, Prime Minister Begin reasserted his intention to build more settlements, despite opposition inside and outside Israel. Its plans display the same ruthlessness used in the Lebanon offensive. For Minister Neyman, the two campaigns have a common aim.
You were quoted last year as saying, this war is in two parts. One is what is happening up there in Lebanon, and the other is to create a situation in which there would be practically nowhere, no place left to create a Palestinian state.
That
what
is
did you
not the
mean by
war.
that?
No, I said these things, but there's confusion between two statements. The war in the Lebanon was to create safety in Galilee, but our effort in colonizing Judea and Samaria, the creation of settlement, is in order to create as fast as possible the fact that there's no place where to create a Palestinian Arab state. Yes, that is certainly what I meant and what I mean.
What do you think Begin and Sharon intend to offer the Palestinians?
Nothing.
It'll be like if you want a tribal map of Belfast, patches of the different ethnic groups. That is going to be the picture, let's say, in 10 years. Just like a mosaic of homogeneous areas of Jews and Arabs interspersed, but controlling the development of Arab towns by building the Israeli settlements on hilltops overlooking Arab townships, and by that controlling Arab development.
The ramparts of an Israeli settlement. Violent attacks by some settlers on Palestinian communities make everyday life hard to tolerate. Those involved are usually members of isolated Zionist settlements. 10 days ago, violence erupted in Jerusalem when hundreds of these settlers demonstrated for Mr. Sharon, despite his role in the Beirut massacre. Palestinian lawyer Jonathan Kutab has gathered affidavits alleging settler violence for the International Commission of Jurists.
Up here in Sinjal, for example, some kids were attacked by settlers. One of them was kidnapped and taken up to the settlement. Another was shot dead, and he was left out in the open for 3 or 4 days before his body was found. Settlers have been roaming through the streets of the village at night, shooting in the air, sometime detaining and even beating up some of the residents of the village. The shepherds from the village have lost some sheep to the settlement and have been strictly warned not to graze anywhere near the settlement.
On a remote hilltop north of Jerusalem, a battle is taking place between the Palestinian Ureib family and Israeli settlers who came with bulldozers and ordered them off their land. Ibrahim Matar visits them regularly.
The family went out and told them this was our land, and then the father of the family was jailed 3 times for working on his land. One day he was working on his land with his children, and settlers came up to him and they told him he had to get off his land, and he refused to get off his land. They beat him. They beat his eldest son. He had broken ribs in the back, and also they fired live ammunition at him to get him off the land. The family, it doesn't seem they're going to move. They are determined to stay in the house. They have also gone to court. They have hired a lawyer, and the case is still in court.
The clashes between the Arab farmers and the new settlers are inevitable, according to Meron Benvenisti.
It always happens when you have two ethnic groups living side by side, and then it's bound to happen. If you have to pass through a village and the children throw rocks, then everything starts. This is only a symptom of what we can expect in the future.
Units of militant settlers have taken to the streets alongside their troops to put down disturbances in the West Bank. During last year's riots, settlers shot and killed several Palestinian demonstrators. Palestinian lawyers have gathered sworn statements alleging systematic harassment by settlers and soldiers. They claim that violence by settlers is backed by an aggressive official security policy. Jonathan Kutab.
There is an organized political thrust to the military occupation now. Most estimates are that almost every male person between the ages of 14 and 40 has at one time or another been arrested. Whole schools may be closed. Students who go to school may find themselves arrested on their way, taken up to military government headquarters, beaten up. They're forced to confess to things that they did or didn't do. Why, when they end up in military court, from which there is no appeal, they end up being convicted primarily on the basis of their own confessions in Hebrew.
Last week, 4 Israeli soldiers were jailed for brutally mistreating West Bank Palestinians. At their court-martial, formal army security orders were made public. The instructions were those of Chief of Staff General Raphael Eitan, severely criticized by the Beirut massacre inquiry. Eitan had ordered
detention for questioning without trial, release for a day or two, and then renewed arrest. Harassment. Jewish settlers to carry arms and open fire when attacked. Economic sanctions against problematic Arab villages.
These policies are creating violent divisions among Israelis and a climate of confrontation on the West Bank. For the Jewish settlers, there's the promise that the occupied Arab territories will be won for Israel, their security guaranteed by force. The Palestinians face continued occupation or emigration. Another document issued by General Eitan confirmed hard-line military thinking. He and his commanding officers recommended
the building of a detention and exile camp and a policy of punishment by expulsion.
Expulsion hits on a very sensitive nerve, because what every Palestinian here fears more than anything else is expulsion. The sentiment among Palestinians is that the Israelis would like nothing better than to take their land without taking the people. So the fear of expulsion or mass exodus is present among Palestinians at all levels.
To Palestinians and to many Jews, Israel's West Bank offensive could threaten both communities. It may force a Palestinian exodus, but if the Arabs choose to stay, it will create a restless province of Israel held down by force.
It will be one territory with about 3.5 million Jews and 2 million Arabs living under one political system, living in this separate and unequal kind of existence, and the pluralistic tension that will emerge are going to be unbearable.
There may be parts of the world where security is no argument. Here, security is the main argument. And I have to think of the existence of Israel. And given their nationalism, my nationalism, mine being connected in this case with my sheer physical existence, I pick mine.
If you always believe that you are a threatened minority and you are always on the verge of being annihilated, then, and you have this psychological problem, then you have to feel that you are strong, and then you have to use your strength. But if you feel secure, then everything changes. I feel secure. I don't feel that Israel can be destroyed militarily. It can be destroyed from within. I believe that they can put in the West Bank, within 3-4 years, 100,000 Jews. And then I believe there will be no point in negotiation, because there will be nothing to negotiate.